Step 3. Let's get right into the sheet metal. In order to get into the sheet metal and start painting this, I want to describe to you the ability to add, subtract, intersect, and overlap selections. You are only supposed to draw a path, one line of a path, one time. What does that mean? Let's get close to this so I can show you something. I'm going to hit the V key and point to this back area. When you path out this rear end area, you're only supposed to path it out one time. When you draw the horizon down, there is no need to actually duplicate the line that goes down for what I'm pointing to of this rear or the of the back of the car. And what you should do at that point is to learn how to intersect, exclude, add your paths together. And let me kind of get into that, and then as I'm painting, I'll demonstrate it to you. First thing I want to do is show you through, I'll try to keep the opacity of this layer that I'm turning off and on. I'll try to keep the opacity up all the way. Sometimes when you draw, lighten the opacity when you draw so you can see what you're drawing, but I'm going to click on the overall sheet metal of this car, and I'm going to give a command click to it so that we can see it. This is the one that I actually want to use for what I'm about to do. Let me back off so you can see the actual overall sheet metal of the car that I used, or am I going to use, to fill up the gray area. I believe I'm going to use number 2 here. Yes, I'm going to use number 2. What I would like to do is to then show the horizon down. And I want you to see the path as I hit the P key and I click on the path. You can see how where the selection is the sheet metal. Where the horizon down is pathed, from this point where I'm circling right there, I just quickly went over to the left and then down and then across, and then I surrounded the outside of the car so that I could eventually overlap these two areas to create a unique selection, which is called the horizon down. So let me show you how I did that. I made a selection of the car as I just described to you. Now, to paint the in-between stuff, or to get what's in between the sheet metal of the car and the horizon down that I have pathed out already, you hold Command, Option, and Shift, and you simply click on that. Now you can see how I have designated or exacted a selection that is for the horizon down, yet the back end here, as you can see, is still a problem. So what I'm going to do is, instead of intersecting the rear end, I'm going to subtract this little section from what I have selected. I drew the rear end of the car. It's right here where I'm actually highlighting. Let me again hit the P key and let me grab this, and you can see how I've pathed this out to follow this line. Well, all I'm going to do is go to this path, and I'm going to hold Command and Option to subtract, and I'm going to subtract that shape from my overall shape, creating what took me 3 different clicks to accomplish. So what you should do at that point is go to Select, Save Selection, which I've already done, and I've called it Horizon Down. Now you can see how, instead of me having to actually perform that function again each time, all I have to do is command click the horizon down channel. So once more, when you're drawing, constantly think of how to work with your paths together. And then I'm going to describe, every time I do this, I'm going to describe when I add, when I subtract, when I intersect, and you will know what I'm talking about. What I want to do is I want you to learn how to look at this car. Now I'm going to leave the selection active for a moment, but before we paint the sheet metal, I've created a temporary layer, and I'm going to turn it on right now. This temporary layer, I have more or less filled up the parts of the car that I don't want you to see, or I don't want you to concentrate on when you're actually painting something like the sheet metal. I don't want you to have to create this temporary layer that I'm turning off and on, but here's my point. When you paint a big shape, try to look at the big shape so exclusively that you don't see these small shapes. And if you have the ability to do that, or you will gain the ability to do that, it's going to make everything a lot easier in the paint flow process. So That's why I created this, so that you could really see, if you squint at it, you can see that all I really want you to get at is the warm value of that car. Now this car is fairly unique in the fact that because it's a back end, it has like 3 different sections: a top, a side, and a back section. On one layer, and I've already created it, I have an outer fill layer. And I am going to hit the B key, and let's start the painting process. Hit the B key, hold the Option key, and click on I'm going to click on this gray that I call the overall sheet metal color of this car, because it is the overall sheet metal. I just have to influence the top of it to a bluish color. Then I have to paint a white on the horizon up. Now, in that sense, just watch how I perform the function. Remember that text file. I have to bring up my text file. Let me close this and just go to here quickly. I won't have to do this again. But remember this text file. Paint out, path out the shape. If feathered, draw to the middle of the feather. Make a new layer for every shape and every change of color. Okay, let's see that happen right in front of you, okay? So I'm going to turn on my little copy of the car, just so you can see it over here. I'm going to deselect for a moment, hit the V key, and I'm going to right-hand click and go over to the small color, and I'm going to put it off to the side. Then I'm going to move this car down so you can kind of see everything together. I'll back off on it a little bit so you can see everything just like I have right now. Now, I'm going to click down to the outer fill of the sheet metal. Remember, I've kind of named all these layers. When I left you last, I just had a bunch of layers. And I'll describe really fast what I've done. I have an outer fill layer. Then I have a color influence, which is my second layer up. Then I'm going to handle the rear of the car in 2 or 3 layers. Currently I've made 2 layers because I want you to see something happen really fast so that you can realize that it doesn't take long in Photoshop to get something done, as long as you have most of your paths accomplished. Then I have 4 horizon down layers. I have 3 horizon down vent layers, and I have 3 horizon up layers. 4 now. Let me hit Command S to save the file because I constantly do that. And before I begin, I want you to remember to purge, edit, purge all every 3 saves. That all it's going to do is get rid of your history states. So you better make sure you're in a happy place before you purge. Now, let me turn off the clicky copy and let's make a selection of the outer sheet metal of that car just like I did there. Now, I already have placed in the foreground color the color that I want, and if I hit the B key, remember, look at this little car up here. I could Option click with the eyedropper and get that color, then simply hit Option delete. Make sure that you're clicked on the right layer. I almost made a mistake. Make sure you're selected on the right layer, Option delete, and fill. Now, let's toggle the clicky copy on and off, and I want you to keep your concentration right here. Let me hit Command D to deselect. Keep your concentration right here, and then you be the judge. When you clicky on and off very quickly, you can tell you're just about exactly where you want to be. Now I'm going to click up to the color influence layer, and what I'm going to do on the color influence layer is I'm going to paint blue on the top of this. I'm going to make my brush slightly bigger. Remember, it doesn't have to take long. And I'm going to paint it with the car being smaller on the screen. I'm going to grab pretty much the blue value that I see by Option clicking right there. Make sure I'm clicked up to that second layer. I'm going to Command click the sheet metal again to turn it into a selection. And now I'm going to hit Command H to turn off the selection. Excuse me. And let's now paint with the clicky copy on. When you paint, try to have no more than 5 to 8 on the flow. Don't change the opacity of your painting. Leave that at 100. I'll explain to you in class what that means or through a different movie later. But please leave the opacity at 100, but paint with the flow on 5. Now let's try to get through this kind of quickly because I want to get to the second. The next movie is actually going to be accomplishing some of the shapes in the horizon up. Then I'm going to accomplish some of the shapes in the horizon down on the following movie. So let's just paint. Remember, I have this blue and Brian's just going to paint all the way through the top of this. So I'm actually influencing what I had. Notice it can't even see the color going on the the actual layer. You're painting with the clicky copy on. Now, let me turn off the clicky copy and you can see how I have influenced the entire top of the car to be that blue. Now, I have separated my layers. Do I have one color on one layer and the overall color on the bottom? Yes, I have done a perfect job as to what they refer to as covering board. All right, now what I want to do is, and I'm going to double check my blue, so I'm going to flip and toggle the clicky copy on and off. Now please keep your concentration right in this area that I'm circling right here as I turn off the clicky copy on and off. Do you see how I'm just about exactly with the right color? I'm just about everywhere that I need to be with the right color. A little bit more back here and I'm good to go. Now, let's accomplish, before we go any farther, let's accomplish this back end color. I call it rear number 1. Now I'm going to get close on the rear number 1. Remember you had Command H on, Brian, because I need to hit Command H and then hit Command D to deselect and save the file. Now I'm going to move the clicky copy. So I hit the V key, the little color copy. I'm going to hit the small color and move this over to here so I can put the back end right near where I need to see it, because I want you to be able to see my color as I'm painting. So I'm going to go like this and turn this off. Now I'm going to actually hit the B key, grab this color right on the top, and I want to get close on this with the clicky copy on so that you can see there's actually a couple of things that happen, and this is the beauty of painting. Do you see how when I point to with the move tool, do you see how it goes from a darkish color blue to a light color where the metal turns the corner, and then the dark color for the actual bottom? I am going to handle this by having this be something I'm going to paint on a higher layer. How come I'm going to paint that little thing on a higher layer? Because it's a small shape. Small shapes on higher layers, large shapes on lower layers. So here's how you paint the back end. It's going to happen very quickly. I'm going to hit the B key. I'm going to go to my rear end of the car, and again I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you this way. I have the rear end of the car right there. Notice how it goes very deep, just like I accomplished right there. Now, I've already done something, and I've actually made a rear dark number 2 and a rear dark number 3, which I'll show you in a few minutes. But let me turn the clicky copy on so I can show you exactly where that line occurs. Look at how that line occurs right here where I'm pointing, not up real high, because I can influence that in a few minutes. What I did was, I did this. I actually expanded this selection by going to Select, Modify, Expand, and I expanded it by 4 pixels for this one. Look at how it took me up higher. Let me do that again. Here's the command click on this one. Now I'm going to expand it by 4 pixels, and in channels, look at how I saved that selection to here. Now I expanded it again on rear number 3 when I command click it, and you can see how I brought myself up to the highest point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with rear number 3. And I'm going to paint the whole bottom end with rear number 3, and it's going to be a really cool thing. I'm going to paint with number 1, and I'll fix it in a minute, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. So with this selected, I need to subtract out the sheet metal of the car, which now I've gone, I'm sorry, I said subtract, I meant intersect. So I'm going to hold Command Option and Shift, and I'm going to intersect the car to create this really neat shape right there, which of course I should save as the rear dark on the inside. Let me Command Z back because I haven't saved that one yet. That's cool. I'm going to save that selection as rear dark 1, just like I had it up here. And now I'm going to move that channel all the way to the top. I already would have had it painted if I didn't have to talk so much. So now let me go to put that right above rear dark number 2. Good. Now I'm going to hit Command H so you can understand something. So Command H is now on. I'm grabbing this color that I had right here. I'm going to turn off the clicky copy, and we're going to paint by clicking onto the layer called rear number 1. Now I'm just going to I'm going to flood this entire area with value. Just flood it. Now I'm going to turn on the clicky copy so that I can see if I am correct on the value. I'm pretty good on that value. It really shows me, I'll turn it off and on. Then keep your eye right where I'm pointing, right there, right in this section. I am just about right on that value if I turn it off and on. What I need to do is I need to darken my color influence layer that is underneath it, which I will do in a minute. But let's go like this and finish this, okay? So let's turn this off. Now that I have that color beautiful, let me turn the clicky copy back on. Let's click to the rear number 2 color, and I'm going to grab the bottom color right here. Now watch what I'm going to do. Can you see how there's more dark on the bottom, across the bottom, and up the left-hand side? If I hit Command H to show you that I still have the selection on, I'm going to hit Command H to turn it off. Watch how without me even looking where I'm painting, I'm going to flood this side of it. When I say flood, I'm only painting at 5% on the flow. But I'm going to flood the left side, and I'm now going to flood the bottom of it. Now, I'm going to sneeze. I can't believe I did that. Okay, no problem. Let me turn this off, and look at how I flooded the bottom of the car. Now, you see how I am now matching the colors that are on this section of the car? Look at how beautiful that is. Now, what I'm going to do to show you a really cool thing is I'm going to actually paint this little section before we go too far, and I'm going to show you how to make something very cool happen very quickly. And let me name this rear number 3 underscore small blue shapes or shape. And I'll probably duplicate this. And I've made those 2 shapes, if I can find them. This is one of them. Let me command click it for you. This is this one. And let me command shift click the next one. Now do you see how I have these light values right there? All I need to do is hit the B key, grab this color that's right there, take it and hit Command H. Are those smaller shapes? Yes. Do they belong on higher layers? Yes. So I'm going to turn this off, keep your eye right up there, and let's paint those with a smaller color just like this. And then in a few minutes, I'm going to actually Gaussian blur, and I'm going to help them out. But here's what I'm getting at. Look and see when I turn this on, to make my brush somewhat smaller. See how there's a little bit of light blue around those on the outsides before I even go Gaussian blur those shapes? If I click back down to my rear number 2 value, that means I'm underneath, let me make a point, that means that I'm underneath this shape. So if I make a selection of the rear of that car, just like this, whoops, sorry, click up here, sorry, let's make a selection of that. I can now, with the clicky copy on, I can grab this light color with the B key right here, and I can just paint a little bit across here. Now remember, I'm painting on the layer that is below these 2 shapes, so I'm softening the edges around the blue that I already made. And this is even prior to me actually Gaussian blurring and making it a little bit more feathered. So let me turn this off, and look at how I've actually added a little bit more of this influence. Now that was on rear layer number 2. Look at how pretty that is. I probably should have made another layer. It didn't take me that long to do. I painted it on the layer that I had the dark on there with, but that's okay. And I probably should, you know what? I'm going to Command Z back a bunch of times, because Brian did make a mistake. I'm going to hit Command H, and I'm going to put a layer above rear number 2, and I'm going to call it light blue. I should have done that. So I'm actually making, I'm fixing my error. Let me make sure Command H is now the right thing. It's actually going to be the horizon, the rear dark number 1. So let me command click it. Let me hit Command H. Now am I on a layer that has nothing else? Yes. I'm now going to paint across here. Oops, let me turn the clicky copy on. So I'm painting and it's guiding me where the color is supposed to go. Okay. Now that's beautiful. Let's go across and reinstate it just like I did before. Let's add a little bit of fuzz to the top. Let's go like this. And now let's reinstate that. Okay, now what I want to do is and that's fine. I've just about done exactly what I did before. Look at how pretty that is. Now if I turn the clicky copy on, do you see how I'm really close on that shape? It's not going to take me real long to make sure that shape works. All right, the next thing we have to do, let me hit Command D to deselect, hit Command S to save. Let's purge again so the file works nice and quick. And now the next thing we're going to do, I'll hit the V key and get this out of the way. There. The next thing we're going to do when we come back, on the next thing, I've got pretty much my values in place to start my horizon up and to start my horizon down. The first thing I'm going to do is deepen this color to match. Actually, I should probably do that right now. And I'm going to remind you that that was on my color influence layer. You see this color influence layer that I'm clicking to right there, one layer above the actual outer fill? If I'm going to be a good boy, I should make another layer and call it color influence number 2. So let me double click that layer and hit Command C. Let me double click layer number 1 and hit Command V and then put a number 2 afterwards. Now all I'm going to do is paint. All these rear layers are above that layer, so I don't have to be careful. When I take the B key and make my brush somewhat bigger, I can't hurt this stuff. That's fine. I can't hurt it at all. And what I should do to show you a really cool thing is I should turn on the clicky copy and I should actually darken this bottom area so that you can get the feel of what it would look like nice and dark like that. And I could do that on the same layer since they don't touch each other. You know, there's always a way to break the rule but still maintain the integrity of the system or the theory. But let's go back to this color. Let me grab that darker color that's on the back of the car. Good. Let me turn this off. Let's click to that layer that I just made in, which is color influence number 2. Let's make a command selection of the car, just like this. Let's turn on the clicky copy, just like that. Whoops. And now, am I on the right layer? No, I clicked to the wrong layer. Okay, now color influence number 2. I turn the clicky copy on. You can see it's on, but now I have the color influence number 2 on, and I'm going to paint this value in the back of the car. And it's going to, let me hit Command H. Now, let's see if by turning off this that I've actually made this somewhat darker. Let me go up here and grab a little bit deeper color from my little color sample. Let's now make that just slightly deeper. Let's go over here and make it slightly deeper. And now I've got a pretty good thing going on. I don't, or I haven't accomplished this real soft edge, which I'm going to do later for you, okay? I'm just getting in the values of the car. I'm not trying to do any finish work at this point so that I have something which is going to be called a color overlay. Now, I did tell you on this layer, Command H, I'm going to flood the bottom of the car with a little bit more dark. So let's turn this on. Let's go down here and grab some of this nice rich dark right there. And now since that is pretty much on the entire bottom of the car, I'm going to grab this dark right there. Let's just take our brush, make it somewhat smaller, and let's now paint that all on the bottom of the car. I'm not going to hit Option Delete and I'm not going to fill it. And I want to be somewhat careful on how I'm doing this. There we go. Now let me make my brush kind of bigger, and let me just flood the back like this. There's about 5 swipes in there. Okay, let's let the computer catch up. There's 5 swipes more. Okay, I'm getting nice and dark on that. There we go. Nice and easy. Remember, I'm painting on my color influence layer right there, so it's not hurting anything. Now when I get back on the car, do you see how I've started to lay in my values that are real nice? I'm only interested in showing you a real nice feel on this car. one thing I would like to show you is, do you see how I have too much value? Let me see if I made a mistake here. Do you see how I have too much purple on this down here? When I click my color clicky copy on, I made it too dark. So all I have to do is go fix the lowest rear number 1 layer. And let me turn on that. It's kind of easy. Let me go down here and turn it on and off. All I got to do is fix that. I've got to just fix it. So I'm going to go and command click it. Just like that. Command click it. Oh, down here is the right one. Command click it. Now I'm going to hit Command H. Let's turn on the clicky copy. Before I move away from this file, let's click. Grab this color right here, and am I on the right layer? Yes, no, now I'm on the right layer, rear number 1. I'm just going to fix this value right there. It's just a little too dark that I had. Let me make sure I do it again. Grab the right color. Okay, that's cool. Now let's go in and let's see what I've done. Let's see if I've lightened up on it just a little bit. I need to go a little bit more on it. There's rear number 2. Okay, there we go. Now I'm lightening up. That feels much better. There we go. Okay, now that feels right. And when I turn on this, you can get a good feel of how that car is supposed to look when it actually is turned on the clicky copy. Okay, next thing. And I want to give you a for instance on this. Right now, this car doesn't look very good. It's going to look great when I get it to 75% completed. You are going to feel exactly the same as everyone else in the class. Trust the shapes and trust what you're painting. Remember, if you screw up on a layer, all you've got to do, since it's the only color pretty much on that layer, is throw it away and start over on just that layer. It's not a big deal. Watch when I get the white on the horizon up. And then I'm going to paint 2 shapes for you that are really going to help us define the whole top edge. So stay tuned for the next movie.